I want to let everybody get on that board here. What up? We wait for everybody to come on board. This is Objective Opinion Live. And I told you it was coming. So stay tuned. Alright, Assalamu alaikum. It's Abdul Hakim for the Objective Opinion. Once again, here in Brooklyn, somewhere in Brooklyn, you know, we around. I brought one of my comrades out to give you some information regarding the issues that are affecting the community and everything that's going array in our community. Now, our hot subject is housing. We need to know exactly how our elected officials are dealing with the housing crisis. At this present time, we have an overwhelming amount of individuals that are finding themselves homeless, and at the same time, we have our elected officials constantly telling us that we are being provided with services and assistance. So we're going to dig into that real briefly. Now, I'm looking at two different cameras here because this is also being videotaped live, and it's also being pre-recorded for BCAT, or BRIC Community Television. I have here one of the comrades that is in the system himself, who has found himself in the system as a result of incidents in his own personal life. So I'm going to introduce my brother here real quick. And matter of fact, I got one even better. I'm not even going to do that. I'm going to let him introduce himself and explain to you briefly what it is that he's attempting to do and why he's attempting to do it and why you should get involved. And if you have any questions, or you want to communicate with us directly, like if you have your own story that you want to tell regarding your housing situation or the lack thereof, you could contact us at the office phone number. That's 718-444-1610. 718-444-1610. Feel free to call in, or you can leave messages on the actual site itself through the live. That's assuming Facebook ain't trying to block us, but if they are, be mindful that we are still recording this, pre-recording it, so that it can actually go out to the people anyway. So, my brother, quickly, explain to the people where we're at. This is the round table, the Objective Opinion round table, and what's your position?
First, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is G. Briggs, a.k.a. K-Son. You know, I do a lot of advocacy, man, for myself and for individuals who are in similar circumstances. And one of the things that I wanted to address today, as my comrade said, was homelessness. Currently, I am residing in the shelter system. That is due to circumstances which I placed upon myself. However, housing seems to be a big issue here in New York City. In the shelter system, one of the things that they say, they provide you with emergency shelter, which is true. However, upon entering into these establishments, wow, any of you guys out there who've ever been involved, man, in the shelter system, you know it is an ordeal. One that I think that we, as consumers, as taxpayers, we shouldn't have to go through the channels, man, that some of the horrendous stuff that is being put out there for us. What I mean by that is, so far, I've spent the last 40 days in the shelter system. What that means is that I had to actually go through 30th Street. And from there, I was transferred to another facility in which I was told, man, that I would be assessed pertaining to whatever my particular needs were. So I ended up in BRC. BRC, upon arrival there, I was assessed, meaning I had to see an assessment specialist who basically asked a series of questions, man, pertaining to my current situation, living conditions, what brought me into the shelter system, and so forth. After speaking with an assessment specialist, I had to then see a case manager. And that person, again, asked me similar questions pertaining to my particular situation, which brought me into the shelter system. Upon answering those questions, that information is then forwarded to the Department of Homeless Services. All right, they're the ones, after all this information is gathered, let me just back up a bit, because after seeing the assessment specialist, a case manager, you also have to see possibly a mental health specialist and a medical professional. So the gathering of all that information, they take that information, it is then forwarded to the Department of Homeless Services, who will then assess your particular needs, ship you out to either one, supportive housing, two, transitional housing. So, taking all that into effect, the average stay for someone in the shelter system initially was supposed to be 21 days, all right? However, because of the cold weather right now, the shelter system has what they refer to as a cold blue. It's cold outside, so that means that more and more individuals are coming into the system, all right, and using up the resources, meaning beds, facilities, so forth. So that in and of itself pushes back the time that you will actually spend inside the system. So I actually encountered an individual 2 days ago who told me he was in the system for 7 years. Wow. I took that information, and at first, man, I was a little skeptical about it, and then looking at every individual situation is different. So I did an assessment of this individual, visual assessment, you know, verbal assessment. I mean, I spoke to the guy, man, I asked him questions, and at that particular time he told me that he had been in and out of the hospital. So it is easy to see that there are some individuals who do enter into the shelter system who can fall through the cracks. But let's go back to me and my own personal situation, all right? I do a lot of advocacy right now for particular reasons. One, I look at my past and I look at what role I played in the circumstances, you know, happening in my life. Unfortunately, I have done time. I have been what you could say a menace to society. But at the same time, let me see who this is. This is my brother-in-law. I'm gonna put him on hold, and we'll get back to him. But what I'm saying is this: I've since grown up, you know. Upon my release from incarceration, I had to really look at my past and I had to look at where I stand now and where I want to be in the future. And in addressing that, I said, yo, I have to be more responsible for my actions. Now, coming out of incarceration, there are a lot of things that an individual will need to get back on their feet. One is housing. Housing is the foundation of everything that is going on with any individual. If you have a place over your head, then you're a little bit more at peace with yourself, and then you have a focal point in which that you can move out into the community and accomplish the things that you're trying to accomplish. So in saying that, we find ourselves gravitating toward family and friends for shelter. And in certain circumstances, that would be an ideal, look. But the situation is not always that simple. Sometimes family and friends can be your worst enemy when you're trying to move forward. There are those individuals in our lives who will keep us stagnated. But that's a whole nother story in and of itself. But for me, I did initially go to family members. It didn't work out, unfortunately. And so I found myself, the other part of that is I do have a residence in another state. But because of my situation and me being on parole, I'm not allowed to travel out of state. Therefore, I cannot live in that residence. So certain things were forced upon me. Me going into the shelter system was one of the last things that I ever wanted to be involved in. But here I am. So in saying that, I'm in the shelter system now. What is being done for me? Not much. What do I mean by that? We live in one of the greatest cities in the world. There's a housing boom in New York City. All around us we see, quote, affordable housing going up. Affordable for who? It's not affordable for me when the rent in this so-called affordable residence is $1,800, $2,000, $2,400 and up. Okay, for an individual just coming back into the society and trying to get themselves together, that is almost
priority number one.
It can't be done until employment kicks in, or you're an individual who's receiving SSI or SSD, or you have a trust fund, or you have a rich uncle or aunt. For me, I don't have any of those things going for me. So I'm in the system, and they give you vouchers. There are a lot of voucher programs, or what I should say is supplemental rental assistance, okay? One of the ones that I was given a SEPS voucher, which stands for Special Exit and Prevention Supplement, okay? Meaning, they give me a voucher for $1,213. Wow. And that is supposed to be enough for me to find a one-bedroom apartment. Well, I've had a voucher since August. The vouchers normally last for a period of 90 days, and then you have to go and you have to get them renewed. It is a conquest to go out and traverse these various different neighborhoods, man, dealing with homeowners, realtors, community organizations to see if someone will assist you in accepting that voucher. It is very difficult, all right? We have the SEPS vouchers, there's FEPS, there's links, there's Section 8 vouchers. It is very difficult to find someone who will accept these vouchers, you know? So you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But I've taken the initiative to go out every day, and I'm making cold calls, I'm on foot, I'm traveling in vehicle, and I'm trying to get someone to accept my voucher.
That being said, let me ask you one question. Since you've been doing this, right? How many realtors have you ran into thus far that actually gave you any kind of assistance with these vouchers?
I've probably talked to over 25 realtors, and out of the 25,
Excuse me, keep going, bro.
I've not, I haven't actually received a call back from any of them.
Uh-huh.
Out of the 25 that
Yes, Danny.
I've spoken to, no one has ever called me back.
Uh-huh.
I've filled out applications, and after filling out applications, they said, well, if something comes up, then they'll give me a call. And like I said, since August.
We live right now. Look at it on the Facebook page because I'm not seeing too many people connect in thus far. So I'm thinking that Facebook might be blocking my connections right now. But go check your Facebook page when you get a chance. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, so I haven't received any callbacks.
Uh-huh.
I filled out an application yesterday, several days ago.
Uh-huh.
And they all say the same thing. You know, we have houses in Brooklyn, the Bronx, Queens, particularly for our Rockaway.
Yeah.
But I'm yet to receive a call back in regards to any of that.
So basically, the system is set up to make it appear as if it's actually trying to assist the people, while at the same time they're warehousing the people outside of New York.
Well, in my communications with individuals, family and friends, everybody is always saying, well, I'm going to relocate out of New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And with this housing boom and the real estate market going up, rents are continuously skyrocketing.
Uh-huh.
So in saying that, an individual in a situation such as myself, a voucher for $1,200 when for a one bedroom in New York, man, is almost $2,000, $1,800.
Yeah.
Who actually wants to accept a voucher for $1,200? So now, I've tried to come up with a solution to try to combat that.
Uh-huh.
These voucher programs were put into effect by our mayor, our councilman, our assemblywomen. So I feel that you put these programs there, and if the program actually worked, we wouldn't have a backlog of people who would be homeless.
Yeah.
So my thing is to do what a boomerang effect. My job right now is to not only get in touch with these realtors, but my job is also to get in touch, man, with my assemblyman, my congressman, you know, the politicians, man, who advocated for these programs, who said that these programs would work, okay? Yeah. But they have to be held accountable. I have to be held accountable, all right?
And right now they're not.
And you hold me accountable because you say, all right, you put yourself in a position to be homeless. And everybody's situation is different. Yeah. Okay? But a person should not be penalized just because they are homeless. Don't tell me that there are shelters available for me. You go into the shelter, and some of these places are horrendous. There are more people there with mental health issues, medical health issues, all right, as opposed to those just seeking a place to live. There are people who've been in these systems, as I said earlier, who've been in the system for years.
Yeah.
For years. Me personally, I don't want to be one of those individuals stuck inside the shelter system. You know, I do work. I'm self-employed most of the time, so I do have an income, but at the end of the day, the services that are supposed to be provided to me by these community-based organizations in conjunction with Department of Homeless Services, they're not working. They're not working. So right now, I want to try to campaign to bring it back, put it back on the table to the politicians who pushed these programs, who said that these programs would work, all right, to show them that they're not working. And there has to be an alternative, all right, to homelessness as opposed to just stockpiling us. I feel like I'm in prison inside the shelter system.
Okay, this one particular place where they got you. What was the name of it again?
BRC, Bowery Residence Community or Committee or something to that effect.
BRC is well known. They've been receiving a whole lot of funds along with Canva. These are non-for-profit organizations that recently popped up in the last 10 years within your community. These individual non-for-profit organizations have been commissioned to house the homeless. And under their program in housing the homeless, they're basically doing the opposite. They're warehousing the homeless and they're collecting the funding. And in the process of collecting the funding, it becomes a revolving door for the homeless. The homeless never receive the assistance they are supposed to be receiving, which is long-term housing. However, they're constantly being warehoused and ran through a new revolving door. We went from mass incarceration to warehousing housing, or warehousing the homeless.
The homeless.
Meanwhile, the fat cats sitting along, they just get fat while you just remain in the system with how would you say it, unclear disposition on how your life will be conducted moving forward because you're living in a continuous fear of being homeless.
And on that same note, I spoke earlier about the housing boom here in New York City. And if you look in the newspaper, they have housing lotteries. New York Connect is one of those organizations where you can go online and apply for housing at Mitchell Lama or the various different housing developments that they have around the city. But at the end of the day, here's the thing, a housing lottery, all right? That means if 86,000 people have applied, I'm one out of 86. What are the chances of me getting into one of these developments? We're talking years of being on a waiting list. Yesterday, I received my voucher from an organization called Riceboro, all right? They're located at 90 Beaver Street.
Okay.
All right? So I went there and I was assisted in getting the voucher. Several days later, it dawned on me, I was like, wow, I went to their website and I was looking at the website and they have a number of buildings throughout the city. So I said, yo, let me go back to them. So I went there, back to 90 Beaver Street. Yo, how can I get into one of your residences? The person at the reception desk didn't know. So I was sent to 555 Bushwick Avenue, which was supposed to be a management office. So I get there, and when I get there, it was, oh, we only deal with financials here. So I ended up going back to 90 Beaver Street. The individual made a phone call, and then I was directed to, I believe it was 217 Wyckoff Avenue, all right? And I called the number, and the woman told me, well, there wasn't much she could do for me because the waiting list, man, was years away. So at the end of the day, these community-based organizations, they're getting the funding, all right, to provide the service, which isn't being provided. A voucher does me no good if I can't find a house.
Now, compounding on what he just said, this is why I said you got to go back 15 to 20 years plus when you're dealing with these new non-for-profit organizations that have come into the city, along with the new developers that have came and developed the city in the last 20 years, 15 to 20 years. During that process, they have basically uprooted New Yorkers and pushed them out of their homes. You have a tremendous amount of individuals that was basically living here all their lives. They built New York. They are New Yorkers. Now you come along with these same individuals who have had the privilege of being allowed to work here and build New York under certain programs like the Section 8 vouchers. The legislation was put in place to protect rent-stabilized housing, rent control housing. They ripped all that out of the legislation, and they've been slowly tinkered away to add this legislation for the last 15 to 20 years, with your rent control board, with your elected officials going down there up in Albany and arguing about the Riachuvalia that they shouldn't be raising the rent every 2 years or every year without putting a cap on the rent to secure people's housing situation. Or with New York City housing denying people that have been trapped up in the mass incarceration who have went away. Now they can't come back to the housing project because they got a criminal record. Or they can't get housing themselves. This brings us to the males. The males in the community, alarmingly, are the main target of this housing crisis.
Right.
And they can't find no assistance nowhere. And the question is, where does it stop? We put together this program, the Round Table, to address many of those concerns. At the Round Table, you are welcome to come ask questions. And if you have questions and you have solutions to these problems, we want you to call. The number again is 718-444-1610. 718-444-1610. The lines are wide open. Don't be, how would you say, a silent victim of a system that continues to basically push you out of it, when you help develop the very foundation that they're standing on.
Right. This is not something that's new. Something that comes to mind particularly is a movie that came out in the 70s, which was Claudine. And a lot of you baby boomers might remember that movie. It was that the man couldn't be in the house, all right? Particularly if the woman was receiving public assistance. So this system that we're under right now is designed to keep particularly blacks and Latinos. I'm not excluding any race or minority, but when I see the numbers are telling us that blacks and Latinos, man, are affected the most, man, by this oppressive regime. And what I mean by that is that, again, I'm always going to come back, man, to the housing boom. And everything says affordable housing. But who is it affordable for? I mean, there are people who are walking around in my community who've just come in from Eastern Europe or the other parts of the world, and they barely speak English, but yet and still they can come in and they can acquire a resident in a neighborhood in which I've lived all my life. I can't go down the block and tell the realtor there, because this person is someone who was supplanted into my neighborhood. I have no communication with this person. I walk through the door, I need an apartment, and I'm looked upon, man, as an outcast in a neighborhood that I've grew up in all my life.
Okay, that's about as much time as we have, man. You have heard live from the brothers that are going through the struggle. This is the Round Table, the objective opinion. This is the first live interview that I promise you guys that you will be seeing. Next Saturday, we're going to do the same thing again with a group of brothers. So stay tuned. The struggle is on, bro. It's on. Peace. Hey, yo, bro. I see you on the road. You're supposed to be here, man. Danny. I know you hear me talking to you, man. Maybe come to the phone. It ain't snowing out there. Stop it. All right, you just heard me say the next meeting is next week, bro. Now you see how it's going down. Huh? That's my brother Danny. He's gonna be here next week.
That was connected to Facebook?
Yeah. Nah. Hopefully we gonna get more brothers. About Dollar be here. He got. Nah, me and the brother. Me and my brothers right here. You see him?
Hey.
It's the three of us.